Barbie dolls or guns. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Screen Junkies Universe. What weren't you allowed to have as a child, Dan Murrell?
Rated R movies.
Rated R movies. Spencer Gilbert. We just talked about
guns,
this.
yeah.
Joe Starr.
Toy guns.
Confidence.
Real guns were fine.
And I was allowed no joy. But what did bring some people joy was the Captain Marvel trailer, which we're going to talk about right now. If our camera's still on,
we're on a
which
black
I'm
screen,
very
JT.
unclear if it is, because we appear to be on a black
Is the
screen.
monitor off or are we off?
Well, I see you on the stream.
You
Sweet.
see us on the stream.
Even
Great.
better.
So
There we
we'll
go.
presume we're still here and continue to talk about Captain Marvel. We have some comic things to discuss, but let's just get the overall first. Joe Starr.
It was
you
neat.
excited?
It was neat.
It was neat. Okay.
It was fun.
It's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
I liked it. I like it's my favorite costume in comic books. And so we got a little mohawk.
Yep.
We got a little non-mohawk.
Yep.
We got both versions of that costume that I like a lot. So I was happy.
Happy with it overall. Spencer Gilbert.
Yeah, the hair transformation was my favorite part, weirdly enough. I thought they did a really good job with that. Aside from that, I was intrigued. I would say I was whelmed. I was not overwhelmed. I was not underwhelmed. I was definitely whelmed by it. Oh, look, that's cool.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
You just said awesome. That means you were whelmed.
I said that was awesome.
The hair thing's
Definitively
cool.
whelmed.
There are going to be some really creative cosplayers this year that like figure out a way
How to
to
do
have
that?
the mohawk, pull the helmet off like in halves, and just have all their hair fall
Yeah.
out the top. It's
Oh,
gonna be cool.
yeah. I'm
gonna
looking
be
forward
awesome.
to meeting you at
But I
Comic-Con.
think for me, I have
Joe.
just a personal thing that doesn't do it for me is amnesia stories.
Sure.
And people
You
trying
don't like regarding Henry?
not a regarding Henry guy, not a born man. It's just like when the central character's drive is like, who am I? Like I
really like this genre opinion.
no, it's a very specific one. I don't know. It's just got a little bit of origin storyitis, and I know it's an origin story, and I know that a lot of it was told in voiceover. That's not really probably going to even be in the movie. Story-wise, 6. Everything else 9 to 10. Like it looks great. The jokes were good. Sam Jackson being young again was fantastic.
Looks
Sure.
weirdly good.
Yeah,
I was not expecting.
Well, I don't think they had to do much. He looks really young.
I mean, he
period.
does.
Yeah.
but not like that.
Not that
Yeah,
young.
no.
Dan Murrell.
Yeah.
What did you think about the hair? Because I think that's
His hair
Yeah.
looks fantastic.
No,
His hairline,
Well, Jackson's
evaluate.
hair looks
Oh,
great. I
her
was talking
hair.
about her, but his too looks great.
It's nice, yeah.
Good hairline.
I gotta be. I'm not sold. If I'm being honest.
You gotta be honest.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I'm not sold. It looked like the first trailer to me, which was superhero movie the movie. This was superhero the movie trailer too. I think
With cat.
Sure. Yep. There's a cat in it. I don't know. I just feel like I still am not excited about Captain Marvel, the character. Like the first trailer didn't really give you much of it. This trailer, I don't know if it may just be what they're pulling for the trailer. It may just be, but the what they've shown so far, I'm not like I can't wait to see that character. It's when you're just pulling 20 seconds out of a 2-hour movie. It's I'm not going to judge the whole movie by it, but what they've shown me of Brie Larson in this film, I think I maybe just need to see the bigger performance to really dig into the character because it seems a little flat. What they pulled for the trailers seems a little flat.
I think there's a chance that this is a Captain Marvel First Avenger type situation, and then your Captain Marvel Winter Soldier movie is going to be really, really dope, and they sort of really figure it out, and she
Yeah,
clicks.
but I don't want to think a movie down the line. I'd prefer that this one be good.
That's fair.
Well, I would say
just me.
I would
I'm not
say
going
more
to
so-
excuse him for the
No,
first
I
one
get that.
preemptively.
What you're hearing in the trailer isn't necessarily her performance,
Right.
because she's not saying those words.
Which is
on
why I'm
camera.
saying I'm not going to judge the whole movie by it. I'm
Yeah.
saying what they have chosen to show for her character is the least intriguing thing to me about it. And for a movie called Captain Marvel, that could be an issue.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's talk a little bit about what they did choose to show. We saw some things that got some folks, including myself, excited from this trailer. That, to be fair to you, Dan, I agree that what we've seen largely for her looks a little bit generic. In terms of an origin story. But again, we don't know how that's going to play out in film. Brie Larson has never really delivered a performance that I didn't like. There was a movie I didn't love, but it wasn't her fault.
There's a challenge too where because it's an amnesia story, like because I've seen a lot of people that are like she seems kind of blank, and it's like yeah, because she's like a memory wiped amnesiac warrior, and that's like a challenging thing to overcome, where you're not seeing like cool Daredevil like F-16 Maverick pilot, and you're just seeing this lady who's like, all I think about is the Korean shooting energy blast because that's all I'm programmed to do. Like, that's like a hard character to like throw up on a trailer and sell.
Yeah, I will say Max Dion is reading, who's one of our producers. I talked to him this morning, and he's reading one of the current runs, and he said that for him, the character in his mind is very, you know, she's just kind of like hardened, but not in like the gritty way, just kind of in like, whatever, I don't care. We will get to the cat who in the comic is Chewie, who is an alien who looks like a cat. This cat, somebody zoomed in on there's a reason I'm talking about the cat besides the fact it's a cat. Zoomed in on the collar, and apparently this cat's named Goose.
Nice Top Gun nod.
Yeah, exactly.
Solid.
I'm like, this is the crossover we've all been waiting for.
I would have named it Slider.
Goose has been reincarnated as a cat
Jester,
and is
maybe.
now Captain Marvel's
Sundown.
sidekick, which means that she's going to have Maverick-like qualities. You see, there was a through line that I was getting to. So I think that Max Dion's take on the character is that she does have
That's one
Maverick-like
Harry
qualities.
Jr.
Like she's kind of like a Harry Connick Jr.
Oh, boy. Honest trailer preview.
Yeah.
So in any event, that she sort of has like a Maverick-like quality. I was tying it all together to Top Gun, where she's kind of like snarky and just kind of like doesn't give an F. Does really like she goes in and rescues an entire ship, but it's just because they have her cat. Things like that. And
If there's a thing of her and the cat at like a piano bar, like bringing the house
I'm
down.
on it.
Yeah,
I'm all over it.
Definitely watching that.
So whether she will have that in the film itself remains to be seen. I can't tell from the trailer if she's going to have those qualities or not. She does have the origin is being kept intact in terms of the Kree human hybrid. I'm excited to see Annette Bening in anything. She
that's
should
true.
trend every single day on Twitter, in my opinion. So
Shamefully robbed of an Oscar nomination last year.
Again. This woman has been robbed for an Oscar more times than
this is
Leo.
the one that'll clinch it.
Yeah, this is it.
This will be the makeup award.
Anyway, so Annette Bening is in it, so that's exciting. I was very happy. And people are theorizing that she is the supreme intelligence, which is composed of the brains of the greatest Kree minds, thinkers, generals, philosophers, scientists, removed at their deaths and assimilated to a supercomputer in a process called, quote, supremization. Anyway, they worship her as a god, if this is who it is. So that, I just like Annette Bening, so she's in it and I'm on board.
Sure.
Nerd, does the idea that she is the supreme intelligence excite you?
I just like Annette Bening in the thing. I hope she gets a little more to do than Glenn Close got to have
that's fair.
in Guardians.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of Annette Bening playing a malevolent, infinite-brained Kree god.
Cool.
Like, that's kind of cool. Like, that's just a weird thing for Annette Bening to do, so I'm into that. Instead of playing somebody's hit mom in her upteenth film. Like, yeah, this is a new direction for Annette Bening, so I'm super into that.
We're going full Kree, Joe.
We're going full Kree. You
Yeah.
should never go full Kree. We're going full Kree. We're going full Skrull. Which isn't. I was thinking
Maybe
about that.
leading to Secret Wars eventually.
Maybe, yeah. I was thinking about that today. The narrative, if the Skrulls have been around since the 90s, there's like trying to set up for their infiltration invasion.
Yeah.
I like the idea that invasion keeps getting screwed up by things in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, okay, it's time to go, and then Hydra makes their move, and they're like, pull back,
We
pull back, pull back,
we had
pull back.
scheduled our invasion.
Yeah, and they're like,
Dang
okay, it's time. We're going, brothers. It's on. And then Thanos is like, ha. And they're like, okay, pull back. Brothers? Oh, God. We got to start all over.
Did you hear that theory? The theory is that because they're setting up the Skrulls here, and that it's supposedly leading to Secret Wars, that that some of the heroes that we saw snapped were actually Skrulls.
Sure.
That's a fan theory.
Yeah, I mean,
Currently.
that is what the Secret Invasion War book is about. They sort of discover that, like, I think Mockingbird and Beast and a few other people had been switched out, like, a decade or so back. The only theory that it doesn't fit is recasting people, because if I'm going to be a shapeshifter trying to look like Captain America, I'm not a good shapeshifter if I shift into a form that doesn't look like Captain America. Sure. So the recasting theory, it doesn't fit, but the getting rid of some old guard, it definitely does.
So that, again, the speaking of the nerds, Ronan, I'm looking at you. Ronan the accuser. This was interesting to me because people were really excited to see sort of the back of Ronan's head, I guess.
Yeah.
But I didn't know there was such a call for more Ronan.
I think
There
that's
wasn't
like
until-
there is and there isn't. I mean, look, Joe, maybe you know better than I am of his comics backstory, but to me this is like, well, he didn't really get a fair shake in Guardians 1, so
Yeah.
now we have the potential to make that movie retroactively better, hopefully,
Yeah.
by giving him a more developed villain story.
As you watch his dramatic arc in Captain Marvel, and you're like, this guy gets killed by a dance-off.
Yeah.
Well, they could set that up. Maybe he's always distracted by viral dance clips on his space boat. The Macarena has landed. It's the 90s.
I must accuse it.
Unfortunately, it's not the 80s where like he could just stumble into Beat Street and break in the sets.
Right.
You
Yeah.
could, yeah.
It's a
But
whole other movie
90s would
that's
be like
happening.
Hammer Dance. It would
Yeah.
be Macarena.
There's
What
a
other
whole number
dances
of
were there?
distracting dances.
There were some
So many distracting
MTV. He
dances.
could
The
walk on to
Watusi.
MTV's The Grind and just start swinging a hammer. I'm not like when I saw the back of Lee Pace's head, I wasn't like finally. But I will say the MCU has done themselves a disservice by killing off every villain that they have. Because sure, Ronan the Accuser wasn't neat that time around, but like that's the point of having B, C, and D tier villains so that you can do more with them in the future.
Yeah.
The moment Claw got wiped out in Black Panther, I was like, come on, that guy can be your go-between arms
Off camera?
dealer. Yeah.
Off camera.
Well, no, then they throw his body in front of the dude, and they're
That's
like,
true.
look.
Yeah.
Here he is.
Scroll.
He's
Here's
dead.
the-
Scroll.
Scroll.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Honestly, hopefully. Like, none of these, like, villains are, like, Thanos-level interesting, but that's also not their job. Like, they're supposed to be interesting enough to get used in future material and stuff like
The
that.
Bebops, the Rocksteadies.
Exactly. You need Bebops and Rocksteadies. You really, really do.
But they're not. But Bebops and Rocksteadies aren't headliner villains. I mean, again, I don't want to hand wave off the fact that they have a history. They're getting better.
They
a
are getting
history
better.
of making very disinterested and disinteresting and uninteresting villains just by saying, like, well, you know,
But
can
if you
save
keep,
them. Like, no,
but
it's
if
a
you
flaw.
keep the cards in play, then that like a different writer can finally like be like, I have a better take on Ronan, and then in that movie you're like, oh my god.
It always feels weighted one way or the other, though. There's so few movies where the hero and the villain are equally interesting.
Sure.
It's always weighted to one or the other, in my experience.
Yeah, and especially in an origin story.
Yeah.
Where you have to just, by definition,
Ooh.
spend so much time with
Unbreakable.
your hero. Oh, well, yeah, but that's like, you don't really know
Yeah.
what you're watching.
That's true.
It's
Anyway,
more like-
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, that was it. That's my point.
It
I'm
was a
done.
good point. It was a good point. Well made.
I found that Inglourious Bastards was able to counter hero and villain fairly successfully.
Yeah.
But it's tough because, you don't want the villain to be so good that it overshadows the story, because that's very easy. But but I think that they have in the past gone too far the other way of just like, here's a guy that shouts at the sky and waves his arms and
And he's blue.
He wants
CGI
power.
liquid flies around
Yeah.
him and he, explodes into a ball of light at the end.
And the
that's it.
motivation is because.
Yeah.
Which is always a very uninteresting motivation. But again, I want to emphasize my point that it's a clear Top Gun tie-in is happening, and we are to think of her subconsciously as Maverick with her cat, Goose, who is also maybe an alien or the reincarnation of Goose.
That movie.
Of actually Anthony Edwards.
Of actually
I like that.
Anthony Edwards.
Oh, if
from
the cat
Top
is voiced
Gun.
over by Anthony Edwards,
Yes,
then
in
kiss your fingers.
I think that overall, I think that there was enough in this trailer to keep me enthused for the movie. I would agree with you guys. I am also whelmed.
I'm whelmed, yeah.
I feel fully whelmed.
I'm not unexcited for it, but it's just, I don't know. What do you want me to do?
What do you want from me,
What do you want from
goddammit?
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's usually just like the cat moment was the moment of like real personality in that trailer, and I don't feel like she had that moment
It's
yet.
the cat.
The cat. I don't feel like Captain Marvel had that moment of personality where it's like, that's who she is. Like, you
Yeah.
get it with Star-Lord, you get it with Ant-Man, you get
Yeah.
granted,
Which
they're all
the
the same
challenge is, like-
personality, but you don't get it with, I didn't get that moment
Which-
of, like, that's her character.
Yeah,
in this
which
movie.
Yeah.
unfortunately, if the arc of her amnesia origin movie is we find out who the character is, like they can't, because that shows
yeah.
you that's too much third act.
Yeah,
That's
that
true.
they're showing you.
Well,
That-
she's rolling right into another movie 2 months later.
That's
so.
true.
That's fair.
That's true.
Also fair.
It feels like she's gonna be. Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say something and then I decided to take it back.
Yeah. Welcome back. Good
Welcome
timing.
back. I walked
As long
it
as
all
as
the way
long
back.
as there is not the scene where she puts on the black one-piece bathing suit that they had her in for a couple of decades and goes, nah, and like looks right in the camera. Like just skip,
And winks.
just skip that step.
Winks a little bit.
Yeah.
It does not feel like it's that kind of movie. But you raised a really good point in terms of like that personality that I was describing for her. That Maverick-like personality is basically those other heroes. That's Ant-Man, and that is
Too many cocky
Star-Lord.
Maverick flyboys.
I have
Yeah.
no doubt that it will be better
It's
than the
a girl.
last fighter pilot in space with a CGI mask movie that we got
This is true.
this year.
this year.
this year. Yeah. All right. Well, are you whelmed? Are you overwhelmed? Are you underwhelmed? Are you excited for Captain Marvel? Why so? And over under, is there a secret tie-in to Top Gun? Hulu thinks that networks are going to be gone. That's a hot take via Variety. Like, this take is so old. That's what's amazing to me about this story. This is according to Hulu CEO Randy Freer. He predicts that traditional cable channels are going to be done within 10 years. You
Traditional cable channels.
think, Randy?
I remember when they said that 10 years ago.
Yeah, they keep saying that.
So he says in the next decade, it's not going to be about scheduled linear networks. The survivors, will be networks that have been able to build a brand, resonate with computers. Most TV networks probably won't exist. He believes that pay TV lineup is due for a radical makeover, with the exception of live news and sports, which also is a big question mark to me, especially as ESPN, Disney, what are they doing with that in terms of live sports? And the more you get into things like VR with sports, that's a question mark for me too. Anyway, moving on from that. Everything else in TV will bundle and be distributed on demand, he says. The company is about yes.
The head of Hulu, so I
Yeah.
would imagine he would want to push that pretty hard.
Yes. And he says on Hulu, they're talking about doing things like a la carte, making things like The Handmaid Season 3 available without ads if you pay a little extra. And then the rest
you
of
buy
it.
the show.
Yeah, you basically buy the show versus you can have it with ads or you can pay a little extra and buy it without the ads.
Interesting.
He said it's crazy that we're still held hostage by the pay television industry, and everything is tied back to Comcast somehow. We can't innovate. Every time you try to negotiate with one network, you're negotiating with the entire industry, is his frustration. So obviously things are in a flux right now. We have these streaming services coming from Disney, from Warner Brothers, Netflix, Apple's getting in the game. It is obvious. Disney says they are going to invest further in Hulu. Good news for some. And us as consumers, I think Hulu still has a place in all of this, but at a certain point, it does get incredibly fragmented, and I start to want to throw things. Joe, what do you want to throw? Spencer?
Joe?
Well, I mean, he said it himself. Everything's tied. You can't innovate because you're going against a bunch of juggernauts who aren't not necessarily, competitive content creators, but there's an entire skeletal system of massive companies that aren't going to let network and cable company packages go. They won't even let landlines go. Like, if you want a really good cable deal, like, you still have to buy a phone. Like, there's no way they go down within the next 10 years. We've sat in rooms and heard a lot of people point at pictures of old network executives and be like, they're out in a year and we're the future. We have, and it's not going to happen. I think streaming will continue to get stronger and stronger, but it'll happen as a conjunction with like this set model. It won't. I don't think it's going to replace it anytime soon.
But Disney's about to own 60% of Hulu. Disney also owns ABC and ESPN. So that's one of the four major broadcast networks that is a major cable network. So now Disney is going to be financially have a 60% financial stake, and Hulu certainly doing better, which would mean, as he's saying, there is negotiation that has to happen with networks. Well, now Disney has all the incentive in the world to give Hulu a sweetheart deal, because the more people go to Hulu, the better they do. It's almost like this should be illegal. And the same with ESPN. ESPN dealing their contracts and stuff. Well, now they're going to be heavily financially invested from their parent company to work with Hulu, because the more users that Hulu gets, well, guess what? The parent company of those two networks is a 60% owner of that. So I do think that potentially at least as far as ABC and ESPN go, they will certainly maybe be not as willing to play hardball or willing to move preferentially over to Hulu. And I think if the ice cracks there, then maybe the ice cracks elsewhere. But it is very odd that, again, one company is going to have so much control over so many different branches of its own corporation that they can swing an entire industry potentially with what they do and how they do it.
Yeah, it's also a little odd to me that this is coming from the CEO of Hulu, where it's like, to me, their business is built on being able to see all the other networks' shows on there. Like, Handmaid's Tale's great.
Yeah.
That's one of the only shows I know it for. Like, you go on Hulu to watch FX, to watch AMC, to watch... and
That's how I get my Ramsey.
Yeah,
Well,
to watch
FX, by the way, also
Well-
will be owned by Disney.
Yeah, FX to be owned by Disney. But okay, so where I actually that's an interesting point. But where I see his logic is, he doesn't need to go through the networks to get. He currently needs to go through the networks to get those shows. But for him, the networks are the middleman at this point, because he may not always need to do that, because the networks aren't producing the shows.
Right.
So if a show is made by Sony but airs on FX or wherever, he probably wants to live in a world where he's just, and maybe sometimes he is,
Buying those shows.
buying those shows from Sony. And so, and I think he's right in the sense that I don't go to watch NBC on Hulu. I go to watch Superstore, or I go to watch The Good Place. And then he's right in that sense where I'm cherry picking shows that are on lots of different networks that I watch on Hulu.
Yeah.
And he may just want to be in a world where he's just getting them straight from the producers and not going through the networks.
Right now,
and then he has the international license, which is what Disney wants for Hulu.
The competitive advantage I think Hulu has right now is, that the networks have right now is the window.
Yeah.
As far as, like, if you want to watch Superstore, if you want to watch whatever, you can watch it the next day, or if you have cable, you can watch it when it airs. If there's a network that makes the deal with Hulu that says you can watch your same shows at the same time on Hulu as on cable or broadcast, that's when I think you could see a big shift.
Yeah, and I think what he would want, what Disney would want out of this is exactly that. They would want the studios to license directly to Hulu so that they're not hamstrung by having only domestic licenses, and that they can stream globally, which will change the game entirely for Hulu.
So Disney could negotiate with itself
And,
to get ABC shows available day and date on Hulu.
Or whatever Disney is producing, right? And so then that way, again, I think they're coming at Netflix from two angles at that point, with the Disney streaming and with Hulu. If it's able to go worldwide, it's totally able to compete with Netflix.
Sure. But I think, I do think that's what you're going to see FX, you're going to see ABC, maybe even go day and date with Hulu and Disney Plus. Like, the moment it airs is the moment it drops. I do think you'll see that. That's going to be their competitive advantage over Netflix. But in terms of, like, pure cord cutting and just like a culling of the networks and cable, you have these monoliths, Comcast, Spectrum, AT&T, that are dependent on those existing, and I think that's where you're going to find situations like, okay, you can do that, you can show your shows on Hulu, but it sure would be weird if maybe your bandwidth got a little lower and stuff like that. And I think that is where the hard line's going to draw, where it's like, you guys can do that, but you also still have to offer your cable packages and programming so that we can
I wonder how AT&T is going to feel about that with the Warner Brothers streaming service, or what's going to happen in terms of that service.
And they own NBC too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and
NBC is
Comcast.
Comcast.
Sorry.
Which means that they'll never play ball.
Yeah.
And you have this weird
God,
situation
it's
now
gonna get
where a lot of these networks, and I agree, people don't really care about networks more so than the shows. They all have their own, like, crappy streaming services. Like, if you want to watch, like, a Comedy Central show, you have to download the Comedy Central app and pay Comedy Central an individual thing, and it doesn't work, and it's horrible to navigate and stuff like that. But they just don't want to play with these. They don't want to seed these people. They're the Hulus of the
ground.
world.
They don't want to seed their ground, but they're going to have to eventually.
Yeah.
That's what is going to be weird, and I just don't know what's going to happen is, before Hulu was sort of co-owned and everybody had a chunk, and now that one company is going to own the majority of it. How then now is that going to even work where the networks own a part of a company that technically they're invested in it doing well, but also one of their competitors is the most invested in it doing well? So it's like, do they penalize themselves to punish their competition, or is it like a rising tide floats all boats? Like what's like?
Yeah,
and
the opposite. Like if they all split up, I think they all fail because I'm not going to
Right.
subscribe to NBC, CBS, ABC, and NBC. Like I'm just
Yeah,
like an antenna, like an old man.
I think that with Disney now having the majority stake, they don't care about the networks. They want to drive them out. They want to drive Netflix out, they want to drive the competition out. It's going to be fascinating, and you guys let us know if we're being clear enough. I do worry about that sometimes, like in terms of what we're saying, the conflicts of interest are. So what I'm saying, and I'm sure you already know this, is that though you may be watching a television show on NBC, it doesn't mean NBC made that show. A different studio could have made that show very easily and probably did. So Sony could have made that show. Sony Television could have made that show. And then what Joe was bringing up is the tech companies that own the studios then also have a stake in whether you, like AT&T, whether you also have a cable package or not. Plus, they can... Then we get into net neutrality and how the shenanigans around how they're favoring their particular service or not. Mort, and then Dan.
It's gonna get real weird.
Real bad.
So I think that ties into the next time we have to what is it? It's every other month we have to start shouting about net neutrality because that's how things work. But all of this stuff starts to really paint a clear picture of why that's an important issue for people who don't yet understand why that's an important issue, because pretty soon you're going to have these monolithic companies that own, not just the foundation that all this stuff gets shown and streamed from and screened on, but they own a studio, they own a network, like
your electricity, the cable headed to
Cable
your house,
use.
the food you can
Yeah,
eat, and
exactly.
the car you drive. Or don't.
And his name is Jeff Bezos, and he is our Lord. Oh boy, yeah, it's getting very complicated,
Bezos,
very
Utani.
tricky. And at a certain point, you would think like a government would step in and have some rules.
Come on, Roth.
No, okay. Well, you know what I do know?
What?
I love Kurt Russell. That's right. We have a good
yeah.
reason to talk about Kurt Russell
he has
today.
been
'Cause
purchased by Disney.
Very, very.
He's got his own streaming service.
Yeah.
Russell Plus.
By the way, I would pay good money for that. This story is here because Billy secretly loves me. Christmas Chronicles movie, massive streaming opening. Now, I'm also going to subtitle this segment. We got a bone to pick with you, Ted Sarandos. Specifically, Dan has a bone to pick with you. This is via IndieWire. So basically, Netflix came out and reported the viewing numbers for original television film. Chief Content Officer Ted Sarandos announced at the December 3rd UBS Global Media and Communications Conference. Why do people name stuff so dumb?
They get off on it. The higher up you go,
know.
they get off on names like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also so that
makes
you
them
don't
sound more
suspect
important.
that it's a rager.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, it's a total, like, the after party is all eyes wide shut.
We joke, but it is. Don't you think it probably actually
100% is.
There
Yeah.
are so many, I promise you, like there are so many like spouses and significant others
Yeah.
and stuff like that that are just like, oh, it's just the UBS Global Media and Communications Conference,
you
sweetie.
give
Don't
it-
worry
Yeah,
about it.
just
The
like you just
banal
give
names,
them the.
yeah.
It's
yeah.
like True Lies. Like, don't worry, honey. It's just the Global Communication Conference. And nothing's
Yeah.
happening.
And they're like,
it's
why
so boring.
Why is that feathery mask in your carry-on?
Yeah, and like a full-on like cocaine mountain, just like with a fountain that's spewing it out. So in any event, speaking of wholesome holiday fare, the Christmas Chronicles, he talked about this, saying that the Kurt Russell star as a Santa Claus earned 20 million streams in the first week on Netflix. And he went on to say the following untrue fact. Even in his successful career, Kurt Russell has never had that many people see one of his movies in the first week ever. Oh my God. That's a testimony to what you can bring to market for storytellers today that you couldn't have 10
pretty
years
incredible.
ago. So two quick things. One, this movie would not, they were talking about basically it would have had a $20 million opening weekend comparably in theaters. But
If
but
apples
that's-
were oranges, that's
Yeah,
exactly how it would be.
Exactly. It was
It turns out it's easier to watch something that
At home.
for free than
Yeah.
to go out and buy a movie ticket.
Exactly. I
So
mean, it was appointment viewing for myself because it was at home and it was Thanksgiving and I turned it on and I have Netflix and it was worth every penny of the subscription service that month. But that doesn't mean even I would have gone. I mean, I probably would have, but nobody else would have gone into the theaters for this. Also, Dan Murrell, what other movies did 20 million people see?
Even in his successful career, Kurt Russell has never had that many people see one of his movies in the first week ever. False, Ted. I checked the numbers, Ted. Don't mess with a numbers guy. Because just domestically, Ted.
He's a busy man, Dan. He's
No,
He's at the UBS Global Media
cherry-picked
Communication
that
Conference eating groceries, Dan.
Guardians Volume 2 and Furious 7 just domestically had over 20 million tickets sold in the first week. So I am calling BS, Ted. Not true.
God
Untrue,
damn it.
Ted. Not true.
This is how you go the way of your previous partner, Mitch Lowe.
Don't try to
Don't
Mitch
you
Lowe
Mitch
us.
Lowe it.
Yeah.
We're on to
Ted.
you.
Don't
Ted.
you Mitch lowball Kurt Russell.
That said, I am excited that it did so well because that means that 20 million people are on the same page as me.
I'm sure Kurt Russell's thrilled. This is one of his biggest openings of all time. And he's
Yes.
like, I'll just do some like direct-to-video Santa Claus thing. That's fine. No one will see it.
It's a pure delight, Spencer Gilbert. He knew what he was making. It's
The
a
only
pure
thing
delight.
that you don't get from that is two things. You don't know, A, how many of those were repeat viewings, so you can't say 20 million people.
Yeah, because Roth watched it.
15 on my part.
I
And
learned that
Also,
from charting yesterday, yes.
Just like YouTube, you don't know how many people watched 2 minutes and clicked out.
Or how much is autoplay.
Hey, actually, Billy, do we know how they're defining streams at Netflix? Like, are they counting
No.
it as a full view or a single?
No, I mean, like, even this, like, him saying this was more anecdotally than it was like, here's a PowerPoint presentation of what we're doing, because they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So in terms of what they count, I doubt we'll ever truly know.
He just wants to tout that this was a big success.
It was more just like, look what we can do
With
with
Kurt
a
Russell.
big property that's exclusively streaming. So
Yeah.
it was more of just like, look what we can do, rather than like really look at, like, don't audit what we do,
Yeah.
but look at it from
Yeah.
a distance. Don't touch it.
Yeah, don't investigate too closely.
Look with your eyes.
Yeah.
Netflix numbers are like Cameron's father's house in Ferris Bueller. It's very cold. You can't
Netflix
touch
numbers
anything.
are like the Sybil Shepherd, like glossy camera.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, everything looks so pretty.
And yet they won't release numbers for their theatrical movies, which is completely beyond me. We talked about this on Charting too. The idea that Roma's been in theaters now on limited release for 2 weeks. By all accounts, by what people can sleuth and gather, it's doing really, really well on a per-screen basis, and yet Netflix refuses to release box office data for it, which I think is
Weird.
really dumb. So I think they release the numbers that are convenient for them to release.
well,
It's
sure.
like the Fandango thing. Out of context, him just saying 20 million streams, it sounds nice, but that honestly means nothing to me because I don't know. It's like Billy said. I don't know what that means. How long did they watch?
Yeah.
Was it accidental?
It would be impossible to stop watching. I mean, I mean, everyone finished the movie.
From the first frame to the very last.
It's pure
jingle.
genius.
Yeah, but I love this. Those numbers would translate to a first-week gross of $200 million. Well, yeah, and,
In a different
when a dog
universe.
had wings, it would fly.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
movies would do a lot better
Yeah.
if they just popped up on your Netflix.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
For free.
Which isn't to say that this didn't do very well for Netflix, meaning
20
have
million
a
people
lot-
watched it.
Yeah, but also
Some of it
Netflix
clicked
is
it.
everywhere in the world at this point. It was at home, it was easy, it was accessible. How much that was out domestically, I'd be curious. I'd be curious about a lot of things around that. But either way,
I'd also want to know how many of the people of those 20 millions had subscribed in the last 30 days,
Yeah.
15 days. Like, I don't know how they measure ROIs when it comes to, like, people. I'm assuming that the whole point is to spend money so people will sign up
Subscribe,
to
yeah.
watch it. But I don't know how you even begin to track that.
I mean, I think it's probably really hard. I think that their like ROIs are for their series, especially in terms of like when are people. My guess is when a series isn't renewed, if it's not Marvel, is that people stop watching it and don't return. That as they don't binge it. In the first 3 to 4 weeks, that they just don't finish it, and then they think there's not enough interest there to keep you coming back next year for the next one. That's my guess right now, because it would be very hard to distinguish why people are subscribing. The way, like with HBO, where it shoots up around Game of Thrones and it's very clear, unless you're just stealing it, which most people are. I think it would be very hard to distinguish why people are subscribing at this point, because there's so much every month and every week just dumped into my eyeballs.
They're not subscribing for Daredevil anymore.
I wonder how many. That's what I want to know, is how many people actually canceled their Netflix subscription after they canceled Daredevil. Probably not many.
It's so
I'm
easy
guessing
to
not
forget
many.
to cancel something that you even want to cancel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
You know?
man, like
Like,
Facebook is the devil, and I'm still like, but how else do I look at pictures of my nephews? Like,
yeah, or get some weird
Yeah.
invite to whatever.
it's gonna take a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Netflix might actually have to burn my house down for
Yeah.
me to be like, you know what, Netflix, you're on probation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if I went into a restaurant and somebody walked up to me and it's just like, I'm gonna punch you in the face, like I wouldn't go in that restaurant anymore, but I literally go on Twitter every day despite multiple, you name it, not very little, but very much of that on there is not fun, and yet we still go because the good outweighs the bad.
Oh, is that why?
The good outweighs the bad, even though it doesn't seem like it all the time. The good outweighs the bad.
Oh, that's true.
Although the ratio has been slipping the last few years.
Feels like it.
Yeah,
Well,
Facebook
good.
particularly.
Good talk. We schooled. We put Ted on notice.
You scolded Ted
Yeah.
Sarandos.
You could have said
powerful men in Hollywood.
You could have said 25 million, Ted, and
Yeah.
you would have gotten away with it. But no,
No.
20 million.
Got him.
Not in this dojo.
Fake views.
Fake
No, it's not Facebook.
views. Honest. Oh, good. Well, they undercounted, not overcounted. Oh no, they overcounted. Sorry.
They
vastly
Way
overcounted.
vastly
Yeah,
overcounted.
Did we say a million? We meant 4.
4.
Oh.
But someone in a passing train saw someone looking at the video on a laptop across a field. So we're going to count that one.
We're just like there is no place left to trust.
Right here.
I
Roth.
trust
Right
like-
here.
I
This
trust-
desk.
Yeah.
Well,
This desk.
is that it?
Only this desk.
Yeah.
I trust Al Roker. Should we get him to be a part of SJU?
I don't know.
Should
I don't know about that. A weatherman?
Yeah.
Oh, who trusts the weatherman? Come on, they're wrong half the time. I learned from my
damn it.
doppelganger that
Yeah.
they only can predict 3 days out. That's
You know
all.
what-
That's it.
I
That's
will
all I
not
know.
sit here and listen to this Dallas Reigns smear talk. He's a gifted magician.
Who do you trust out there, world?
Wizards.
You know what you should trust? The Honest Trailers and the Honest Trailers commentaries, which you can watch
Today.
right here,
Right
today
here,
on
right now.
ScreenJunkies News. You can watch a movie fights this Thursday's featuring some of my favorite people: Cameron Rice, Sasha Pearl-Raver, Spencer Gilbert, going at it for the title. Just kidding, it's just a regular fight, but still, it's gonna be great.
They're going down.
Going down,
I don't even
down.
know what we're fighting, but they're going down.
It's a really, really, really good question.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Like, it's a difficult one to answer.
Whoa.
Yeah.